Welcome back. So in this particular segment, we're going to be ending our week-long discussion of the impact that an absent father can have on his little girl, his daughter. And so I think it was very poignant that we end the week looking at the perspective of this particular impact from adult women who didn't have their fathers present in their lives, and so they are living testimonies as to the difficulties that are involved when the father is not present for his daughter. So now I have a trio of videos, 3 in a row, that we're going to look at and discuss, and then we'll get some final thoughts. So as always, let's get into the video and let's see what's going on.
So let's start with the role of a father in his daughter's life.
For the son, the father models and demonstrates how to be.
Yeah.
For a girl, daddy teaches her how to be in non-sexual, intimate relationship with a male. You see, in the son's life, the father is there as a role model and a demonstration. In a girl's life, daddy's there as a relationship. It's different. A daddy is very different than a father. And the pieces that he gives his daughter let her know how to be within herself as a woman.
And also how to be with other men, because isn't it the first relationship that you have with a man?
Yeah.
And the way he treats your mother, the way he treats you, is how you model for yourself how a woman should be treated.
How a woman should be treated and how a woman should behave, how a woman should interact in a non-sexual but intimate way with a male. When daddy leaves, he takes a piece of the daughter's soul with him. And that lacking, very often, we try to fill up in all sorts of ways. Now, there are 3 ways you can be daddyless, because my father was in the house, but I was daddyless. We're daddyless if
Everybody
daddy
just went, Now we're going to call it the quiet.
It's the
chorus.
daddyless daughter ache. It's an ache inside of you. So daddy is there, but he's not present.
And so you're aching to be seen.
You're aching to be seen. You're aching to be acknowledged. You're aching to be accepted. You're aching to be approved.
Yeah.
We're trying to catch somebody's eye. And very often when we have gotten it from daddy and he lets us know that you're beautiful, that you're pretty, that you're whatever, we don't have as much of a craving for the external validation. Then there's the daddylessness where daddy was never there. So we fantasize about what it would have been like had daddy been there. And we fantasize about who daddy was. And usually he's not a scoundrel or a weasel. He's this thing, this great big hero thing that we miss and we didn't have it, and somehow make it about us because we didn't have it. Then you have the daddy who was there and is now gone through divorce or death or whatever. And that creates this yearning, this hole that nothing ever seems to fill.
Okay, so this is the first of the 3 videos, and as you noticed, I'm being very respectful about these 3 particular videos that we're going to consider in this segment, because I'm not stopping in the midst of these videos, because I do not want to break the line of thought that's being developed here. I don't want to disrupt the progression of things. And so in all 3 videos, you'll notice that I won't be stopping until the video segment has ended. So now let's get into a couple of things that Ms. Van Zant said that I think were absolutely important. One of the things that she mentioned, she said that there was a distinction between the relationship that a father has with his daughter and with his son. As far as the son is concerned, he is something that the son can emulate. He's an example for his son of what masculinity is. But he's something totally different for his daughter. Yes, she would take on some of the qualities of her father. That would be necessary. But did you notice something? And I have it written here in my notes, and I thought this was really impactful. She said that a father would teach his daughter how to have a non-sexual intimate relationship. Now, why did that stand out to me? Because many times in dealing with individuals, you will find out that, especially between the opposite sex, intimate relationships usually come with sex. And so you'll notice that a lot of the young girls and the young women that you come into contact with, they equate intimacy with sex. And so the father is responsible for teaching his daughter the difference between the two non-sexual, intimate relationships. So she's able to develop an emotional connection with an individual outside of anything that has to do with something that's sexual. That's a powerful thought. As fathers, we absolutely have a responsibility to our daughters, because if we don't teach them this particular skill, if we don't show them how to develop these kind of relationships, then they'll go through life, as I mentioned, equating intimacy with sex. What was the next thing? She talked about the 3 ways that a father could be absent in an individual's life, but regardless of how a daughter becomes daddyless, she mentioned that it leaves a hole in that particular daughter. There's something that it has to be filled. And if it's not filled by the father, then she goes a whole entire life trying to find something to fill that void that's within her. And then too, one thing that I really appreciated is she mentioned that because of the fact that a father was not there, then that particular person needs more external validation, because they didn't have someone there to say you're beautiful, or that you have worth, that you have value. They didn't have someone there to help them to properly build their self-esteem and to know that they are individuals who have value, and that you're bringing something to the world that's needed. If you didn't have that, then you need that constant external validation. Now, what's proof of that? What's proof of that need for external validation? Well, anyone who has a social media account can see that that's absolutely the case, because you have young girls and older women, and they're constantly posting pictures of themselves. Some in good taste, some in not so good taste, but they're constantly posting pictures of themselves in order to get likes and responses, because they need external validation. A person who has a father who is involved in their lives has already reassured them of their value. He's already reassured them that they are individuals who are worthy of love. They're worthy of positive interactions with others. And so those kind of individuals don't necessarily need that external validation, because it's already present within themselves. So now let's get on to the second video, and let's see what's going on.
I didn't even know my father. I didn't meet him until I was 15. I wondered what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I good enough? Nobody ever told me that you deserve to have someone who loves you unconditionally. You deserve to have all of the things that your heart desires. How do you heal that little girl inside of you to make yourself feel valued and feel worthy? How do you fix her?
Wow. Is that your baby?
Baby.
Did she have a dad? Was her dad in her life?
Their dad, these are all 3 of my girls.
Oh, lovely.
And I stayed with their dad in a very toxic relationship for far too long, because I did not want them to feel like I did growing up without a dad.
That's one of the ways that our ache shows up, is that we sacrifice ourselves to try to prevent our children from experiencing what we experience. And in the meantime, in the process, sacrifice our children. Sacrifice our children. Do you get that's what you did?
I get that.
Yeah, yeah.
How are the other ways the pain shows up?
Well, of course, the promiscuity. That's huge. I mean, sleeping with frogs, fruit, anything. You know, moving objects, bread, crackers, anything.
No, and the men are shaking their heads because that shows up in your school.
That's all.
it.
That's
Yeah.
Promiscuity is the main thing. It is rarely seen as self-mutilation, but that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely, it's
You know,
violence
we
against
often, when we
the
look
self.
at young girls who are dealing with pain, we think of self-mutilation as the cutting and all that. That too, but the self-mutilation of allowing someone to physically enter you is in knowing that you don't care about yourself enough to say
Wow, that's a big one.
that at least you have to have
That's
something.
a big tweet, Dr. Perry.
Well, you know.
That self-mutilation comes in the form of
Promiscuity.
Promiscuity, and that it's violence against yourself. I never thought of it that way before. Did you all?
So,
Well, y'all are smarter than I am.
You know, the thing
I never
that
thought of it. I never thought of it that way.
shocks me with these young girls is that they're doing things, and when you ask them, they don't even necessarily like the guys that much. I'm like, why did you do that? You don't even like the guy. This is like not.
Why did they say they're?
And you know what? They don't know.
it's the whole.
He was nice to me.
It's the
He was
whole.
nice to me. No. And I wish it was just it stopped in high school.
No, it does not.
It does not.
But what a father or very important father figure does for the young ladies with whom I work is it sets the standards.
That's right.
Amen. Amen.
Because
Let's get an
the-
amen to standards. All right. Standards.
But how many
And
of us
that's
live
what's
without
lacking.
them?
That's
how
what's
many
lacking.
of us have lived without them?
Standards. Standards.
Raise your hand. tell
So what happens is if one of Jeff's students or one of my students comes to me with this little ugly boy, and she knows how I feel about him, she knows, because we've got that thing,
Yeah.
that relationship, and she knows that when she brings in Mr. Canada, he's gonna look at her like she stinks.
Yeah.
But
ugly
she brought
boys
him there
need
for that
love, too.
purpose.
Ugly boys need love. He
Ugly-
needs ugly in other ways.
I know, in spirit.
Yes, in other
But
ways.
a person who presents himself in an ugly way, and I think you understand.
Because what you all do, you set the standard that says you deserve better.
Well,
Right.
You deserve better, and I will not accept anything
yeah.
less from you because
yeah.
you know what happens? It's a funny dynamic that happens when you see that kid, his pants are hanging down,
Yeah.
and you not with my daughter looking, so a whole physical male
yeah.
thing happens. You suddenly are looking down at this boy, and this girl is looking like, oh, you not no man. That's the man over here because
yeah.
he is telling
Right.
you no.
What did we glean from this particular video? Well, as you see, the video starts off with a real life example of this particular older lady. She has 3 daughters. And the counsel for her, even though she grew up without a father, is not to focus on what you don't want to happen, but to put added energy into the outcomes that you do want to happen. That's the focus. That should be the focus. And then, as you notice, one of the things that she said that caught my attention was she wondered why she wasn't good enough. So, the absence of a parent causes the child to question if they were good enough for the parent to be present. Isn't that a powerful thought? And then she went on to talk about how it was that she struggled with thoughts of being worthless. She struggled with thoughts of her own worth, her own value. She had no one there to validate whether or not she was valuable. And so that's understandable. But then throughout the particular video, there were a lot of ingredients that were added to our mixture, but one stood out to me in particular. One stood out. One of the ways that this pain, this difficulty, this confusion manifests itself is through promiscuity. Promiscuity. And it was interesting that promiscuity was defined for us as violence against oneself, self-mutilation. So you hear the rhetoric that these individuals are sexually promiscuous. They're having multiple sexual partners as an attempt to mutilate themselves. Now, that was a new thought for me, but nevertheless, it was very impactful. And I say that because a lot of times you meet individuals, and this is their line of thinking. Their line of thinking is that at some particular time in your life, you need to be promiscuous so that you'll be able to move on and find someone that you can settle down with. Now, is that correct according to what we just heard, that rhetoric? Anytime a person doesn't value themselves, or anytime there is something within them that's missing, maybe the absence of a father, maybe some other issue, then self-mutilation is a form of a coping mechanism to try to deal with the fact that there's something within that particular person that's missing, that's been lost, that's been taken from them. And so the whole notion that a person would want to be promiscuous, have multiple sexual partners, is a display of trauma. It's not something that's going to bring you some benefit later on in life. That's not how this works. What we choose to do is based upon the traumas that we've encountered, the difficulties that we've been placed in, and the responses that we've taken to those particular difficulties and traumas. So this promiscuity, once again, is self-mutilation. That's a powerful thought. All right, and then the very last thought that I had to pick up on, I had to showcase, is the fact that the father sets the standard, or in some cases, the father figure sets the standard. And so, as it was mentioned, that standard is one where the individual who is taking on the role of that father, that parent, is saying, I recognize the value in you. I see the potential in you. And I'm not going to accept anything that will lessen your value or your potential. And so in relationships, as was mentioned, what a father does is a father serves as a buffer for individuals who might come into his daughter's life to cause chaos and disturbance. As a father myself, I realize that that's my responsibility to say, okay, this is what you're expected because I know your potential. Anything outside of that, gonna have to deal with me. So whether that's some decision that you're going to make that's going to be out of harmony with who I know you to be, or whether you bring some boy and you present him as someone that you want to be with, in either situation, it's my responsibility to make sure that what you're deciding to do is in line with your potential and in line with your value. That's the role that a father serves. And if a father is not there, then the value that a person has, the potential that they have, they may not see it. It may not be evident to them. All right, so that's my thoughts on that video. Let's go to the third. We're doing good. We're cooking with gas. Let's see what's going on this last video.
What about when we've heard women in this room say, and women watching us say, but I didn't want to do to my children what my father had done to me, so I'm staying with him so my children will have a father.
But what you focus on grows. I don't want my children to experience what I experience. That's the focus. That's what you create.
Yeah.
What you focus on grows. Again, it's magnifying the againstness. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. But you're not saying what you do want. You're focusing on what you don't want.
Okay, so let's get to it. How do we heal it?
Well, first of all, everybody just clutch your pearls right now.
You actually have pearls to clutch.
I got my pearl. Let me just clutch my pearls right now. One of the first things that we have to do is tell the absolute truth. Radical, gut level, honest truth. And it starts with, I'm a daddyless daughter. Let me hear that. Okay, now I don't want you to say it from here up. I want you to get down in your body and really sit in it. I'm a daddyless daughter. I'm a daddyless daughter.
You just said that's hard.
Yeah. Who has ever really? What happened?
It's hard.
That's very hard to do.
Tell me why.
To acknowledge, it's true.
But acknowledgement is the first step towards healing. Tell me why that's difficult to acknowledge.
Because that's not the story I like to tell myself.
But is it your truth?
It's the truth.
See? No,
But
so
I'm
what's
not
the
telling
story
the
you
truth.
tell yourself?
I tell myself that he just doesn't matter to me.
And that's a lie?
That's a lie.
Okay, so I'm a daddyless daughter.
I'm a daddyless daughter.
And what I really feel about my father is,
That I love him and I wish he were a part of my life.
and because he's not a part of my life, I feel,
worthless sometimes.
yeah. And the way I cover up my worthlessness is,
The way I cover it up is by not letting him in,
and not,
even when he tries.
and what else? How else do you cover up? Because you feel worthlessness when he's not around.
I overcompensate a lot.
Yeah. Do you overcommit?
Yeah, I overcommit.
Yeah, overcommit.
I try to be super mom.
Okay. So here we go. Take a breath. And this is what I mean by the truth, everybody. Here we go. So repeat and complete with me. I'm a daddyless daughter.
I'm a daddyless daughter.
I acknowledge that I feel worthless sometimes.
I acknowledge that I feel worthless sometimes.
And what I do to hide that
And what I do to hide that
is overcommit,
is overcommit,
overcompensate, and try to be a supermom.
and try to be a super mom.
When the truth is,
When the truth is,
there's a part of me
there is a part of me
that feels broken and worthless.
that feels broken and worthless.
And I'm ready to heal that now.
I'm definitely ready to heal that.
Take a breath. But you feel it. You feel it in your body.
So I'm thinking for everybody who's joining us around the country and the world, you need to acknowledge I am a daddyless
daughter, and what you feel and how you hide those feelings and what you do to overcompensate for those feelings. Otherwise, you'll be sitting here looking pretty and coughed and coiffured, you know, and covering up, because it's a level of emotional dishonesty that keeps you from being able to see the truth. So when Boo-Boo shows up and looking like a rag picker, you tell yourself, look at that prince. Oh. You understand what I'm saying? Because the level of emotional dishonesty with which we keep ourselves broken.
Well, I think that's really key. The level of emotional dishonesty. Ooh, that's good.
Becomes the filter for which we live every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
Well, what can we get from this particular video? Well, I think the subject matter was absolutely fascinating for this particular video as well. It brings a lot of things in focus that even as a father, I had never even considered. I had never considered the impact that I would have on my daughters based upon the things that I choose to do. So now, one of the things that I appreciate is that, once again, Ms. Van Zandt is saying, focus on what you want to happen. Put energy, put emotion, put all that you have into what you want the outcome to be. Not so much focusing on what you don't want to happen. That's not the recipe for success that as parents that we're looking for. We want things to be positive. We want the ends that we meet to be things that will elevate our children and help them to be productive in their later life. So one of the key things that she emphasized in this particular segment is telling the absolute truth. Is it going to hurt? Is it going to cause you difficulties initially? Emotions, are they going to well up? Absolutely. All of what we just mentioned, that's what's going to happen to you if you tell the absolute truth, because it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to look at yourself and see yourself as you really are, because there's always flaws, there's always things that you can change, that you should modify. But then she went on to say that it's a difficult situation too, because emotional dishonesty hinders that. It hinders your ability to look at things or to look at yourself the way that you should look at yourself. Because what emotional dishonesty does is it provides a cushion. It's a cushion. It's you're comfortable there. You can sit on this cushion, and the difficulties that are around you, you're shielded from them, right? But now when you take away the emotional dishonesty, what are you left with? You're left with the absolute honest truth. And we have to get to the absolute honest truth in order to make any progress. Because as we mentioned, emotional dishonesty, that cushion, that's telling you that you don't need to change anything. That's telling you that there's no changes that are necessary. You are fine the way that you are. Is that true? Now, if that was true, then the emotional difficulties that you might be having with your father who is absent, that wouldn't be the case with it. You wouldn't have any traumas related to that particular circumstance if you were okay. So we have to be honest. We have to be real about this situation so that we can heal and move forward. Now, another thing that she mentioned, especially the lady there that she went kind of one-on-one with. The lady made a statement that I think describes a whole lot of individuals who grew up without their fathers. The lady said that, just like the other two videos, she felt worthless. She felt worthless when it came to her interactions with her father. Her thoughts about growing up with him being absent, she felt worthless. And so what she would do as a consequence is she would overcommit. Now I'm grown, I have children, I have a family, I have a husband. I'm fully committed. I'm overly committed to these individuals because I do not want the outcomes that I had with my particular father, my family. So is that an attitude where an individual is operating from positivity, or are they operating from an attitude of scarcity? Are they operating out of fear that what happened to them may very well repeat itself? Well, I have news for you, just in case you didn't know. In most situations where a person approaches a decision that they're making out of fear, then they're prone to repeat the mistakes that happened in the past, because that's all you know to go off of. You don't have any new information to make this decision with, so you go with what you know. Unfortunately, in this particular situation, what you know is detrimental to you and your children. So I thought that was a wonderful segment. I really did. All three were powerful videos. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to get into the final thoughts in regards to the video. So in review, we've covered 3 segments, and those segments have been powerful. They have taught us a great deal about the impact that an absent father has on his daughter. Now, one of the things that I think we should review is what it is that a father does in teaching his daughter by being present. And one of the first things is he teaches his daughter what it means to have a non-sexual, intimate relationship. So he disconnects the thought that intimacy has to be sexual. He disconnects that thought. He teaches his daughter how to behave in those situations, to have an intimate relationship with someone of the opposite sex that's not tied to sexual behavior. And so she's able to move about in those particular relationships without compromising herself sexually. That's what a father teaches. That was the first thing that we noticed. And then we noticed that just by being present and being active in that daughter's life, that a father shows her that she has value, that she has worth, and that worth is something that's intrinsic within her because of the way that he decides to treat her. The love and the care and the concern and the affection that he gives to his daughter, it reassures her. And so she's put in a better position because she does not need any external validation. She doesn't need it. Now it's a welcome situation if someone wants to tell her that she's pretty, that she's smart, that she's valuable. Okay, that's fine, because that's going to happen for her. But it's not something that she needs, because her father has already embedded that particular notion, that particular positive concept inside of his daughter. I thought that was powerful. And then too, something that can't be underestimated is the fact that for his daughter, a father sets the standard. She's looking at the example that her father sets. Maybe he's a hard worker. Maybe he tries to be honest. Maybe he's an individual who is willing to do whatever is necessary in order to make sure that the family is able to continue to prosper. And she's seeing all these things, all of these qualities in her father. And by seeing these things, the standard is set. So when she goes to search for someone that she can partner with for a lifetime, someone to be her husband, then she's looking at those standards that her father set, and she's trying to match those standards with the individuals who she chooses. Think about that. The standards that we as fathers set will be taken by our daughters, and they will look for those standards in the individuals who they choose to marry. So based upon the example that a father sets, it can have a long-lasting effect, not just on his daughter, but then on her children and then on her later life. So it's necessary to set a good example and be present. Then one thing too, we realize that there are some difficulties involved in this situation. We realize that there's some actual hurt. If you remember now, going back to the beginning of the video, my opening thoughts, did you notice that I didn't ask you to set emotion to the side this time? I didn't ask you to be completely logical. I didn't. And the reason why I did that is because when dealing with your daughter, or with dealing with females in general, it's necessary to acknowledge their emotions. It's necessary to acknowledge how they feel. And so if we can acknowledge how they feel, then we know how to approach the situation so that we can repair that bond that we're supposed to have with them, especially our daughters. It's a powerful thing. And so Ms. Van Zandt highlighted some ways that we can heal. One of the ways she mentioned is, as always, tell the absolute truth. Let's just get everything out in the open. This is how I feel. This is how this situation has impacted me. This is what I want to do in order to repair it. So we have to tell the absolute truth. We have to tell it. And one of the things that we have to get past also is emotional dishonesty. So as we mentioned, that emotional dishonesty serves as a cushion. And that cushion keeps you comfortable. You're okay. You're fine. But if we remove emotional dishonesty, then we're left with what it really is. What is the reality of the situation? And when we get to the reality of the situation, see, now we're on firm and solid ground, right? Now we can build. We can repair. We can make forward progress. Because as long as a person is comfortable, then they won't see a need to make any progress. And in this situation, if a father has the opportunity to repair his relationship with his daughter, he can't be comfortable. He can't approach that situation like he would just a regular run-of-the-mill situation. This is important because, as we mentioned, that relationship will affect her for the rest of her life. And then it'll affect any children that she has, and it'll affect the man that she chooses to marry. So we really have to focus on making sure that their relationship is intact, and if it has been severed or if it's damaged, we need to do what we can to repair it. And so, as I mentioned, that emotional dishonesty keeps us from being absolutely honest. And so that's something that we have to remove first of all, then see the truth, then we can make progress. So overall, the videos, as I mentioned, were absolutely fascinating. I think that in our reviewing of these 3 videos, we really have a handle now on what impact absent fathers have on their daughters. I think it was a wonderful way to wrap up this week's discussion about absent fathers and their daughters and what all that situation entails. But now I want to draw your attention to something that was said, okay? As far as individuals who are adults, the adult ladies that are watching this broadcast, I feel the need to make note of a few things. Two, actually. When we talked about external validation, I made the point that in any social media account that you set up, you see individuals constantly posting pictures of themselves. Some are in good taste, as I mentioned, and some are not. That all speaks to the need for external validation. You need someone to reassure you that you're valuable. You need someone to reassure you that you're pretty. You need someone to evaluate you and help you to appreciate that you have some intrinsic value. Do you find yourself in that particular description? Do you see yourself in what those words we just talked about mean? Do you see yourself? It could be a situation where this is a signal that you have issues that you need to resolve with your father. But you might need to go and get some help. You might need to sit down and talk to someone, because the absence of your father is absolutely having its effect on you. Then what about the next thing? Promiscuity. As we mentioned during our discussion, you have individuals who promote that. They push that there should be a section of your life that's devoted to having multiple sexual partners. They look at it as being sexually liberated, as being free. But is that really what this is? From the discussion that we had, is promiscuity really about sexual liberation? Or is it about trauma? Is it about there being some part of you that's missing and you're trying to fill it by self-mutilation? You're giving your body to individuals who did not have the value of you to change your last name and make you their wife. And you're continually doing this over and over and over and over again without any thought about yourself or about the consequences of your actions. Self-mutilation. That's what this is. Let's call it what it is. Now, in our community, we've seen this for far too long, and it's time to address it. It's self-mutilation. Because if you had any intrinsic self-worth, if you had any value of yourself, then you wouldn't do those things. Because you would have already known that every individual that you meet is not worthy of that side of you. They're not worthy of all of you. That's only when you find someone that's on the same page with you, that shares your same values, that can help you to lead a positive and a productive life. You can get on his page and you all can build something wonderful together. That's when sex is involved. That's when it should be involved. We're seeing too much of that, and it's all out of trauma. It's because there's something missing, as we mentioned, from inside a person that causes them to do that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this segment. As always, we really appreciate you viewing it. And please, like, comment, and subscribe. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to the point where we're monetized. And so if you appreciate the content, it's absolutely no charge to subscribe and hit that like button. So please, like, comment, and subscribe. As always, be easy.